Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Artifact Preview Tournament, a first look at the limited portion of the Call to Arms set of Valve's new Dota card game. Got myself Swim and Fwash here. How you doing, guys?
Oh, I'm great. Even better than 5 minutes ago.
Yep.
Doing good. I am now taking the position of Ken, and I'm going to be asking those newbie questions.
Keeping us in check, making sure we don't get like too wrapped into
That's
our
right.
heads.
I have no idea what's going on.
Excellent, because Artifact is a really complex game, and it's very easy to get bogged down in the details. But in broad strokes, there's a lot of simplicity to it at the same time. I mean, generally, obviously, the key objective of the game, you're wanting to take 2 towers, either one tower twice, with the core tower behind it being double the health, or you're trying to win 2 out of the 3 lanes. So there's obviously lots of ways to do that, and there's lots of different tools at your disposal. But at the heart of it, you're just, these are meatheads clashing against each other, and you're just trying to be the one who takes the throne in the end.
Yeah, and specifically, now that we are in round 4, we're doing a redraft. So the first 3 rounds, we played with one draft deck for everybody. Each person drafted a different deck. Now we're doing it all over again. So for the next 4 rounds, round 4 to round 7, everybody is drafting their deck. They're going to be starting in just a moment. And we should be able to pull up our boy Yoel's draft as well. That's going to be starting any second now.
Yeah, but first we want to take a quick look and just remind the new viewers here what it looks like to draft an artifact deck. So we do have a little video segment from Luminous kind of introducing that concept, and we'll play that now for you guys.
Pick cards from 5 packs and try to assemble the best deck they can. Players are only able to select 2 cards from what they see. Then they are given another randomly generated set of cards, this time with 2 cards fewer. This process continues until players have chosen 12 cards, and then a new pack begins. In each of the packs, only 1 hero may be chosen. If a hero is chosen and another hero is offered to the player in a later pack, that hero will be grayed out and cannot be drafted. If no hero is chosen until the end of the pack, the player will be offered a random hero that they must take. Players draft through the 5 packs and pick the best cards they can. Then the players build a deck out of the cards they have drafted.
And that's basically it. There's a lot of complexity to it. There's a lot of nuance in choosing which colors you want to put into your deck and what different cards you consider good or bad. Artifact is definitely a game that is nowhere near solved. There's so many different options that at your disposal, and everybody has their own unique ideas on what colors are good, what heroes are good, even what items will be able to see play in certain decks.
Yeah, so this time around, we're going to be watching Yoel Larsson draft. You guys saw him if you were watching a bit ago. Absolutely devastate with his double Zeus deck. And he, as Blaze mentioned, different players have different play styles, even for the draft. Yoel, personally, is a bit of a favorite of blue. Now, blue might not be the strongest color. Most players would rate it the weakest color in draft, but he actually goes for it more often than a lot of players. Here it is, starting off with a Bronze Legionnaire and a Friendly Fire.
Yeah, blue is definitely one of those colors that you can find very inconsistent results with.
Yes.
Very high ceiling, but also a very low floor. And you just kind of have to learn to look at the pack and basically see what value is available on the table and basically make your decisions as early on as possible.
Look at that expression. He sees that ogre, he's going for it. So we start off with an ogre and a Friendly Fire. He's pretty committed to blue again, so it looks like this is going to be another blue deck. Better late than never is something that makes it into your final cut. Ventriloquy can keep your squishy blue heroes alive.
And it's nice to see that early on. Like seeing that in pack 4, it might be a bit of a question, am I already too committed to other options? But right now, he's got a pretty open hand, and he says, okay, well, I've got a great option for clearing the board. I've got a great hero to go along with it. And he even gets to go for 2 key blue cards.
Portal is so good for what he wants here.
And along with Foresight, which allows you to draw 2 cards from your deck, just makes it so that you can access more of those tools and just continue to play on board. So it does seem like he is going to be very committed to blue at this point. This is one of the most blue-oriented first packs that I've ever seen.
Now, I gotta say, Soul of Spring is a really, really good card in draft format. He hasn't picked up any green, but you did see him hover over it. Looks like he's going to decline the option. Going for a second Payday might actually open him up to a scary gold combo deck. Sees the Skywrath Mage. It's a pretty good river hero for blue. Round 3 deployment. Weak stats, but good, solid cooldown-based active. Looks like he might, in favor, go for the green cards here, though.
Yeah, decides to pass it. The thing with Skywrath is he's just so vulnerable. He's a very flimsy hero, and it can be, like you said, if he's in the first set of deployments, he's probably going to get killed off. You want to kind of save him for later, where you can use his active and his spell. And you have to remember, in draft, they also have access to the 4 basic heroes of each color. So you compare Skywrath to Yumoi, and you got to say that yeah, he's definitely better, but to what extent? Is it worth picking up a card, or is it worth picking up the hero?
This is a nasty pack. Bronze Legionnaire and Beastmaster. Yoel's happy about this. Keep in mind, he's 3-0 already. If he gets a good deck, he might be just kind of on a cruise setting for top 8.
Yeah, and so by forgoing the Skywrath, he has had the Ursa picked up in Pack 2, now has the Beastmaster, and he's pretty much got himself locked in red-blue. You can still do something called splashing, which is putting in one hero of a single color. Like basically, you could have 2 blue heroes, 2 red heroes, and then splash or put in 1 green or black hero, and then they would basically have 1/5 of your general deck composition. But at least for now, he's wishing he had the Tree Protector. He's looking at it. It's like, oh.
At the same time, he does still only have 2 green cards, as you can see there. So even in this case, if you've got a good draft and he's looking at something pretty good so far, you kind of go for a duo. I think the biggest way to think about like duo as opposed to tricolor, like 2 colors or 3 color decks.
Oh, another ogre?
Oh my god. He's so happy potentially. Looking at other options.
Yeah, he just wants to make sure. You always like you see the glimmer in your eyes, and you're like, "This seems too good to be true." Let me double check. No, it's that good.
Why is 2 ogres good?
Well, Ignite is just a way to slow down a game. It's just one of the higher tier blue heroes. Blue basically is a color that's balanced. It's got very strong board clear main deck cards, but balanced around weaker heroes, Ogre being one of these stronger of kind of those heroes. Ignite's just a really powerful ability because you can play it anywhere, and it just slows the game down, which is what you need as blue. Wow, Stonehall Ogre. Wow.
Some great creeps coming out for the red side
Amazing.
of things. He's already locked into red with these Beastmaster and Ursa pickup to an extent, and being able to fill that out with some very beefy guys to put in the mid game of the board. Ignite in general is going to be a
look at his face when he sees that Bronze Legionnaire. He sees this halfway through a pack. Keep in mind he's drafting against other players right now, asynchronously, which means 3 different people passed up this Bronze Legionnaire so far.
but is able to snap it up and gets a lot of value out of that one. Now he has 3 in his deck, and he's just able to stack up some big options here.
And when you've got a good draft, you can just take it duo. Now, he has the option for the Black Splash here if he wants to take the Necrophos, as you mentioned. It could be 2/2/1. But when you're having a good draft, when you're on that roll, you kind of go for the duo.
Some
Another
great cards here.
conscript.
Ogre, Conscript, and Spring the Trap, 2 extremely high tier red options. Gotta snack
And
those.
you can see it on his face. He cannot believe his eyes.
Yeah, and this just means that he is going to be able to build a ton
Oh
of...
my god, he's got the bristleback.
This is great. This is just incredible.
He's shaking his head and grinning.
This is the kind of deck that you can go 4-0 with. We did 3 rounds of Swiss already. Now we're going through a new draft. The next 4 rounds is what the players that are currently drafting their decks are going to have to play through with this card pool. So we now have an incredible deck for Yoel Larsson, red, blue, all the way, with some insanely powerful mid to late game creeps that will be able to finish off the towers.
Man, and look how fast that draft was, actually. I mean, he knew what he wanted, like, every single time. He's got 2 ogres, one presumably on the flop. There we go. I like this deployment. So one of the things about Artifact is you can choose which heroes play round 1. Those are Bristleback, Ursa, and Ogre here. Beastmaster's coming in round 2. You can see it's 4th with a little divider there. And then the second Ogre in round 3. This means he'll be able to cast Ignite turn 1 with the first Ogre and kind of protect the second Ogre, keeping it for when he decides he wants to play it somewhere.
Now, each time you put a hero into the deck, it comes with 3 included cards that will also be put into the deck. They're pretty much inseparable between the hero that you selected and the card that comes with it. Sometimes the card could be good and the hero's body isn't as strong, and could be vice versa. But in this case, like, now that he has 2 ogres in his deck, he gets the rare chance to have 6 ignites in his deck. Yes. Which is an improvement that costs 3 mana and will deal 1 piercing damage to every enemy in that lane at before the action phase. So that means that he can go ahead and just stack those up, put 2 or 3 ignites in a single lane, and just start mowing down creep waves, making it extremely difficult to push into.
I guess, Fwash, in answer to your question, the reason Ogre kind of complements Blue so well is he's able to slow down the game in the early game, which is kind of Blue's biggest weakness. Like, Ignite is exactly what you want for Blue, because it's cheap, but at the same time, it still slows the game down. You can play it like turn 1 even, and it just kind of stops the opponent from winning the game before your stuff comes online.
Yep, and now he's just got all this early momentum. I mean, the deck would have been amazing without the Bristleback coming out as Pack 5, but getting that as your 5th hero just pretty much sets you for a great game. He's got so many good early game options in a deck that still is fully capable of controlling the late game. Like, you look at the curve, which is basically the set of colors you see in the top right corner there, 1 through 8, and you can see that he has a lot of 2 mana, 3 mana, and 4 mana cards that he can play in the first or second round. So he's able to develop the board really early and then use that momentum to bring out some of the big heavy hitters like the Ogre Conscripts and the Spring the Trap later on.
Yep, making some tweaks to his deck. He actually switched the deployments of the Ogre and the Beastmaster. This is actually going to allow him to do something pretty sneaky with Compel, actually, because you can deploy the second Ogre into the lane that the Bristleback is in and compel the Bristle right into an opponent's hero.
That could be very powerful to get the early activation of Bristleback's passive, which gives him armor after he's able to kill a hero or see a unit die when it's blocking him. So
and he's got the cunning plans to pair with that as well for the same exact effect. I think this is 100% his reasoning when he puts that Ogre in the second round deployment. I really like this line of thought.
And Beastmaster is a good hero to have as your last deployment because he has an ability that starts on cooldown. He's able to summon a Loyal Beast, and that's able to allow him to get a larger creep board. He's able to kind of play the long game with just basically a free creep every few turns, but you're not going to have that ability right off the bat. So by delaying that, you're able to make sure that you're making the most of that cooldown and able to take advantage of it as the game progresses.
So just to be clear, those cooldowns, they actually tick while the heroes are not deployed yet?
Yeah, so they all start on cooldown, and then even if they're in Fountain or off the board, they're still cooling down those abilities so that presumably you would play them as soon as they come up available.
Yes, that is correct.
You can see our standings.
Very well. Anyway, we are starting the game now, so we should be able to jump into the match. This is turn 1 of the game, and we've got PA spawning into the Bristleback lane. And let's take a look here.
Yep, so if you look at the top left corner of the screen, you can already see a little bit of what is going to be happening if things don't change. You see there's a red X on the Ogre Magi in lane 2, and that means Bristleback is face-to-face with him and ready to finish him off.
And that's what you want if you're VinKelsier, not what you want if you're Yoel.
Yeah, he does have Ventriloquy in hand, so Half-Clumpkin can use that on his melee creep to taunt the Bristleback and make it attack the melee creep instead. However, that is a temporary save, because you are going to see that he is still going to be threatened in the next turn.
Yep, so Ventriloquy, he's actually not electing to do that. He's going to go ahead and let his Ogre die here. Interesting sacrifice. Basically, just knowing that it would be preventing the inevitable unless he top-decked one of his cunning plans or compels. But on the other hand, Yoel at least will get the spawn against the Bounty Hunter here.
Yeah, if we can go ahead and select Bounty Hunter and look at that passive ability, Janata is a very strong ability for Bounty Hunter when it activates, but in this case he did not get the lucky roll 50%, so he did not have enough damage to kill the Ursa.
Why does he have -1 armor now?
So that is due to Ursa's passive. Fury Swipes, whenever Ursa deals battle damage to a unit, that unit permanently gets -1 armor. So this Bounty Hunter is just going to be sad for the rest of the game.
The rest of the game?
Yes, and this will pair really well with the Ignites on the Ogres, which are going to start coming down. I will point out one more thing as well, which is this Pickoff in the hand of VinKelsier is about to hit huge value on this Ursa in the right lane. This is a very powerful black card that will allow you to break lane rules normally and deal damage to a unit in any lane here.
Yep, so he only gets to play black cards on the lane with the black hero. Phantom Assassin here does have the option, however, to play this to any lane, and he is going to be targeting that Ursa down to get a kill, a critical kill on that lane and put some gold in his pocket as well.
This does very well. Of course, Yoel is locked out of options mid. He has the option for Enrage or Clear the Deck here, neither of which is really going to do anything against this board state. But mid, VinKelsier might develop the Rebel Instigator, which on a 25% curve will actually start cloning itself due to its own passive, which requires it to hit creeps.
Now, if you wouldn't mind, Swim, can we pull up the deck list here with F2 and F3 and take a look at exactly what both sides have available?
Absolutely.
So the left deck list is going to be the bottom player, VinKelsier. The right deck list is going to be for Yoel Larsson on the top.
Oh, the curve!
Wow.
And
that's exactly what he wanted.
Yeah, now we're going to see more of those Rebel Instigators spawning, and they start swarming in. Everyone, get in here.
This is a bad start for Yoel already. This is absolutely not what you want to see.
Not at all. I definitely expected momentum for Yoel, but ends up being on the back foot, at least here in the mid and right lanes. Now, I want to look at the deck list just to look at improvements real quick, because we did see that Yoel Larsson did buy the Demagicking Maul. This is not only a good tool for increasing your hero's damage, but has the potential to just obliterate improvements when you're not blocked.
VinKelsier only has 2 improvements in this deck. It looks like the Gold Mine and the Unsupervised Artillery.
So he just puts it on the Ogre for now. Maybe it'll get some value later. Most likely VinKelsier will just decide not to put any improvements on that lane unless he thinks they're safe. And in general, it's just going to be a little bit more of an expensive short sword.
Yep. So overall, it looks like Yoel's deck has the late game kind of secured in this matchup. VinKelsier's is kind of more aggressive. VinKelsier is going to try to end the game really early, trying to play stuff like Coup de Grace, trying to close the game out with those like quick game enders there.
How do those consumables that he just bought work? He just bought a TP scroll, but now the shop's empty.
So basically the middle shop, which is your own customizable item deck, you build that from your 9 items, replenishes the item you see every time you purchase something, whereas the secret shop on the left, which gives you a random selected item, or the side shop, which is consumables on the right, do not.
So what are the kind of consumables you can get?
There's 4. There's Town Portal Scroll, Potion of Knowledge Healing Salve, and Fountain Flask. Basically just stuff to move between lanes with Town Portal Scroll, replenish your draws with the Potion of Knowledge, and heal your heroes or even creeps with the Salves and Flasks.
5 seconds.
Now we're going to be seeing a belated deployment here with Ogre Magi going to the middle lane, Beastmaster going to the right for Yoel, whereas the Winter Wyvern and the Bounty Hunter are going to be going to mid and right for VinKelsier. Now, it's kind of important to note, for those that haven't seen from a first-person perspective, that deployments are done blind. You don't get to see, like, the Beastmaster is going to be going here, and in response, you move your hero to block him or something like that. Both your deployments go out, you hit your button, you have permanently locked in where those heroes are going to go, and then once both players have done so, then everything is revealed. You see where the creeps, the heroes will fall, and what their pathing is in terms of what they're going to be attacking next.
I gotta say, this looks like a really good game for VinKelsier right now. Yoel is kind of nothing is really going his way so far, and it's kind of exactly as I was saying, with the ogres potentially being the weak point of the deck. He needs to start like pulling these blue cards, because as you can see, both of them are being threatened right now, and if these ogres keep dying, he's gonna get locked out of these cards in his hand.
Yeah, Ventriloquy is not going to be able to do too much here, and he is actually threatened by a track coming in from the Winter Wyvern. Now that makes it so that he's going to be giving 10 more gold away to VinKelsier if that ogre does die. But for now, stabilizes it with the Traveler's Cloak.
Does that track stay on Ogre?
Yes, track is a permanent ability that stays on a unit until death or TP scroll. It can be taken off with a TP scroll.
So right now, nothing's really going to be happening too much in this lane.
Let's
Just
check
a
out
lot
the
of
right
tower
lane.
damage coming in. I assume that Winter Wyvern will consider using the Arctic Burn, and indeed he uses his active ability to move to an empty combat position, and that will allow him to do +4 damage directly to the tower, bringing it down to 18.
Yeah, I gotta say, I really like VinKelsier's decision to Town Portal Scroll the Phantom Assassin earlier. As we saw in the left lane, you're basically sacrificing this lane at this point, and that's exactly what you need to do when you kind of realize you're the aggressor in a matchup. You gotta play faster, and the pressure's on you to end the game before the opponent can really come online. So we're gonna see a sacrifice of the left lane completely, just to put so much pressure in mid and right that Yoel might not be able to respond. I mean, for example, cards like Primal Roar are going to be a little too late, right? Call the Reserves maybe the same, especially if ogres die.
All right, so it goes for the board clear option with Clear the Deck.
Huge.
This will provide +4 cleave to both heroes, which means that they're basically the enemy neighbors, the units across from each hero is still going to be taking damage along with the target that they're initially attacking. So that means that we are going to be seeing the 4 units on the right threatened to death and potentially going down unless VinKelsier responds.
Now, I want to talk about the Soul of Spring. This card is about to be played, and the most important thing about it specifically is that it triggers itself. So it itself is a green card, which means as soon as this gets played on Farvran, it represents regening Farvran for 4, as well as this creep. So this creep will stay alive at 4. Oh, taking the slay. Whoa! Slaying his own creep, stopping Ogre's Cleave?
That is actually a play that I did not see coming, but it is extremely next level. And the reason that he does that is because Soul of Spring would have helped the melee creep next to Farvin, but it would not have helped the Satyr Duelist, which he considers much more valuable.
He's keeping both of these alive.
Units do not cleave if they're hitting the tower. So Ogre Magi, while he does have +4 cleave, is dealing actually no additional damage to the enemy neighbors. Instead, just hitting the tower directly, keeping the Satyr Duelist alive. Now the Satyr Duelist is in a position where he is dealing lethal damage to the Ogre and will continue to grow based on his passive.
That is an amazing application of Slay. Slaying your own unit to stop the cleave from happening.
And we do see the only option for Yoel Larsson is going to be doing a ventriloquy
The
to
response.
turn the damage the other way. This will make it so that he is not going to be taking that much damage on the Farvin the Dreamer, but the Satyr Duelist stays in play.
Yep. Now, one of the Ogres is down from Yoel Larsson. VinKelsier is going to be deploying the Phantom Assassin, presumably right, and the Ursa is going to have to play defensive here. Yoel is just trying to stay in the game for as long as he can. He needs these tools to come online. Primal Roar is going to do a great job at just kind of slowing the game down and giving him punch through. But at the same time, even though he's got left lane for free, it's going to be really hard for him to take right against this.
Yeah. So some of our newer viewers might have been confused of why Yoel Larsson didn't consider playing the Enrage on the Ogre Magi, and that's because certain cards have some limitations. A lot of the color-locked, the signature cards of heroes will be locked to that color. So if you look over at Enrage, you'll see that that particular card can only be played on red heroes.
Yep. So Yoel has the call the reserves that he can cast from a mid to either other lane. Keep in mind this is a lane-wide spell. You can play this anywhere. And that will represent a good way to use the mana here, but his Ogre mid is still being threatened by this Bristleback, and both of his lanes, mid and right, are under an unbelievable amount of pressure here. The Ignite is just not fast enough to slow this down. Nope. There's the reserves. So Yoel has to sacrifice mid at this point, basically, and just start playing for right lane.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation to be in, especially since that track is still on the Ogre Magi, and that will be giving VinKelsier a huge amount of gold. But at the end of the day, you need to know where to cut your losses, and that tower is going down for sure this turn. So instead, puts more pressure on the right board between the creeps that he just summoned through that spell, as well as the one that's summoned from Beastmaster. He's going to be in a position with a very wide board to most likely take down this right lane.
Absolutely. And we got to talk about Wyvern's Sig as well. Wyvern's signature is Winter's Curse. Disarm a unit until the end of the round, and that unit's allied neighbors battle it. Very similar to how it works in Dota. Basically, one thing is disarmed, and its two neighbors attack it. So, for example, using it on Beastmaster here would make the Ursa and the Creep hit it, killing it, which would also make it get targeted by Ursa's passive, permanently modifying it with -1 armor.
Definitely an option to consider, but he also might go for the defensive player. Still has Soul of Spring in hand, has the Revtel Signet Ring as well, so could definitely do either of those plays to save the Farvin, and he'll start off with that, kind of waiting to see what else Yoel is going to commit with his 6 mana.
Yep. And as Yoel, you can do the same thing if you want to. You can kind of pass back if you want to play for reactivity, because one of the nuances in Artifact is sometimes you want to play first, but sometimes you don't, right? This is a situation where you don't want the initiative. You don't want to lock out of spells. You want the reactivity. You want to be able to react to what the opponent does. If Yoel kind of recognizes that and is comfortable passing, and if VinKelsier doesn't call him on it and doesn't pass back, then Yoel gains reactivity and kind of the superior play because of it.
So unfortunately, the problem with that is that if he decides to pass and not play a card, he might just not get that opportunity to do so whatsoever, because basically you'll hit pass, and if your opponent chooses to pass as well, combat occurs, and we move on without a second opportunity. We're going to see the Viscous Nasal Goo come out just to finish off that pesky Satyr Duelist. Do not want to have to deal with it any longer.
Potentially, but there's also Soul of Spring that can keep it alive still. Very powerful card.
Yes.
What did the Nasal Goo do?
So the Viscous Nasal Goo, Bristleback's signature card, we can see here, is a permanent modifier on a unit with -1 armor. Now typically these permanent modifiers are to be used on heroes, but there's a lot of situations which demands using them on creeps. There's the Soul of Spring. This is going to keep the Farvin healthy and the Satyr Duelist alive.
Yes, and so the Satyr Duelist is going to come out of this with actually 1 additional health thanks to Soul of Spring, despite the negative armor. So it's kind of weird how this actually plays out. It's going to be, all this happens at the same time. The armor and the regeneration takes effect. So the Satyr Duelist is taking 1 more damage from the melee creep, but he's actually going to be getting 4 regeneration, which absorbs 3 of the damage incoming, and then also heals it for 1.
Vesture of the Tyrant being picked up by VinKelsier. That's going to be very powerful him here. And as we can see, this game is kind of all boiling down to right lane this time, because of course VinKelsier took mid, Yoel is about to take left presumably, and whoever can take right is going to be in a dominating position. I gotta say, this Vesture is super scary. We talked about this card before. It just has the means to basically shut out a game. This +3 tower armor is insane.
Yeah, a lot of potential here to completely eliminate the aggression from Yoel Larsson, but we have to keep in mind what's in his hand, the card Primal Roar. Ursa is in play, which means he has theoretically the chance to be able to play Primal Roar on that right lane and knock some heroes out. You don't even have to kill them in order to get the Vesture Tyrant out of play. You just have to move them somewhere else.
Ooh, Yoel picking up a golden ticket. This can give him any item. He can get a bailout here. He does not. Gets a Stonehall Cloak. Not a terrible item to get from it, but not really what you're looking for.
Not at this stage of the game.
Can give any item?
Yes, any item in the game. From
Outside of
the shop.
consumables.
So
Outside
that
of
could be a
consumables.
vesture.
It
Yes.
could. It could be just about anything. And the value of that really comes down to whether or not it's 7 gold or more. Maybe you'd be happy to pay 7 gold for a Stonehall Cloak on like round 2, but this late in the game, it's not going to be doing much more than a Traveler's Cloak.
Yep. And we have Bristleback taking left tower. Now Yoel just needs one more. It will come down to this right lane, but VinKelsier has a bit of inevitability here. This is taking 20 damage a turn, and we even have more pressure potential with stuff like Arctic Burn active being off cooldown yet again.
Yeah, definitely an option, but you usually want to, in this position, just maintain initiative. Means you pass right now so that you are able to act first on the next board. Winter's Curse will not really create any lethal opportunities here, so initiative isn't as valuable, but in theory, if you are worried about any of your heroes being killed off before they can act, then you're going to want to just pass and hold on to the opportunity to play first.
Yep. Bit of pressure could be applied here, but we're taking initiative. So we have VinKelsier on the initiative. This is going to take an extra damage because of the -1 armor, but it's still staying alive. And keep in mind, this Soul of Spring is a permanent effect. Another green card being played means more regeneration. Unfortunately, it will not keep the Duelist alive, but it will keep the Farvan healthy.
And now that card that I was talking about, Primal Roar, is actually not going to be an option for Yoel Larsson, as we do see that Ursa is not attacking a creep. Similar to how the Ogre Magi was attacking the tower and didn't get the benefit of Cleave, Primal Roar is a spell that will only work if your red hero is attacking a unit. And in this case, he's attacking the tower. So we're not going to be able to see Phantom Assassin and Farvan pushed away. Based on just basically where the chips lie.
Yep, looks like this Keenfolk Musket's ability will be a great option to kill this Ogre. You need 2 more damage to be applied here, and the Keenfolk will probably come down to kind of represent that, although it'll often be countered by something like Cunning Plan to keep the Ogre out of kill range. This creep would trade very well into the Satyr Duelist here. I want to bring our attention to Forward Charge, a card that's normally kind of overlooked, but this is the situation where this card could actually end up closing the game out. Siege is a very powerful mechanic if you just want to end the game quickly, because when you've got Siege, every time you damage a creep with that unit, or any unit, anything that's not the tower, you deal the Siege damage to that tower. So on this board state, for example, it's only dealing 4 damage to tower, because PA is attacking Ursa, and the Satyr Duelist is attacking the Ogre, but maybe next turn, if this is dropped, it could represent as much as 8 damage, which is huge over-the-top potential to take this tower from being defended.
Absolutely. We are going to be seeing the Enrage come out. Basically, right now, Yoel has a hand that's not really all that useful and just wants to make sure that his Ursa is staying alive and he's putting a little bit of extra damage out. But now we get the play from VinKelsier, which is going to be the Prowler Vanguard, which actually has a twofold effect. Not just playing the creep, which will be a 0/6 body on the board. It has a passive ability to provide 1 armor to its neighbors, and being a green card, it activates the Soul of Spring, giving full regeneration to Farvan and to the Satyr Duelist next to him.
Yep. I like this Keenfolk. We're going to have the Cunning Plan. There's the swap. But Satyr's not dying. This regen is triggered. It's actually healing 2 from this combat exchange because the creep is dealing 2. And, of course, it's healing 4 from the Soul of Spring. Keep in mind, regen doesn't happen after combat. It happens at the same time. So the Satyr Duelist is not dying here.
Yep, even finding the opportunity to drop down the Untested Grunt to block out Beastmaster's summited creep, and that means that we are going to be blocking out almost all the damage incoming. It's going to be 11 damage hitting tower, dropped by 3 thanks to the Vesture of the Tyrant, and now a board advantage for VinKelsier in this defining lane.
And right is just the lane to fight for. It's also important to consider that this game is kind of on a clock here, because VinKelsier's presence mid is higher than Yoel's presence on the left lane, which means that if right ends up kind of being a wash lane, VinKelsier will potentially win it in about 3 turns. We see Yoel deploying the Ogre here, trying to kind of open his options up. He can play something like Better Late Than Never on a different lane. We're going to have to see what he draws. He needs some kind of like AoE clears, which is something that his deck doesn't really have, despite being blue.
Yeah. So very interesting deployment, this Ogre Magi to lane 2, a lane that is already lost, but of course still has the opportunity to be lost more.
Exactly.
Maybe he's in a position where he thinks that if he doesn't start putting something in mid, it's only going to be a matter of time before that tower just drops. So he is going to be blocking 6 damage from the Winter Wyvern, and he does have the opportunity to play either Ignite or better late than never to lane 3.
Yep, and he's probably going to play both. We're going to see the second Ignite come out here, and this is going to start stacking. You'll see like this synergy with Ignite and minus armor here. This Bounty Hunter is going to start by taking 4 damage right off the bat because it has -1 armor, and the Ignites will kind of represent being able to double down on both.
I think that this Bristleback TP changes the math, though, a little bit, because now that the Bristleback is no longer here, you really need to fight that much harder for lane 3, and the way to do that is to keep initiative. Now you have Primal Roar as an option to be used onto the Bounty Hunter, stunning Bounty Hunter, and removing 2 adjacent neighbors.
Yeah, I love this roar here. Just playing for initiative. This is the gigantic roar of your dreams. It will be stunning this middle one, the Bounty Hunter. And of course, it might even die to like Ignite pressure in the next turn. Huge roar.
Beautiful.
Let's see where they go. 1 mid, 1 left. That's pretty good.
That's extremely good. And now in this position, Bounty Hunter is just going to be going down. Only an item like a Healing Salve would really be able to save the Bounty Hunter, maybe a TP scroll you could still use even when the hero is stunned. But you have removed 2 heroes that could have played cards, and you have stunned the other one so that he's not able to act in any other capacity.
I want to say, this is really important. The fact that Phantom Assassin, who has the Vesture, is stranded in a lane she doesn't want to be in. If you're VinKelsier, you have to figure out a way to kill your own Phantom Assassin. You don't have mobility. You don't have Blink Dagger. You don't have Town Portal Scroll. You need this Phantom Assassin to die so it can come back in 1 turn with a faster deployment and defend the lane it needs to defend. That roar might have just won him the game.
That roar was just absolutely perfect. One round too late, it almost felt like, but gets it out in the nick of time. And yeah, Vestra Tyrant, an amazing item, but only affects the lane that a PA is in. And in this case, she is now stranded and not going to be dying to melee creeps anytime soon.
And that just shows, wow, like how hero death is not maybe even as bad as hero just being stranded. Like if this Phantom Assassin was killed instead, she would come right back. She has Vesture. She would come back immediately on this turn into the lane she wants to be in. She's stuck here now. She's stranded in the middle of Narnia, and there's nothing she can do. The Vesture is just completely like denied as a card.
And now look at VinKelsier's hand.
Yes.
The lane that is important is lane 3, where there's only 1 hero, a red hero. And if you look at VinKelsier's hand, he doesn't have any items, and he only has 1 red card. Viscous Nasal Goo is his only play on lane 3, and it's not going to cut it when that Ogre Conscript comes out from Yoel Larsson.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, there's no defense to be applied. There's no cross-lane cards that can happen here. This Phantom Assassin just being stuck in the wrong lane. I mean, imagine if Phantom Assassin was right. We would have the Vesture kind of blocking all the tower damage, and it's impossible to delete Vesture. That's why it's so strong, because even if you kill her, she comes back. But if you just strand her in the other lane, she's stuck there.
All right, so we're going to look to try to potentially put out enough damage to threaten lethal on the mid tower here. Thunderhide Alpha is a great step in that direction, but 48 is just a lot of health to chew through. 80 HP on a core tower is something that is very rare for a player to be able to not chew through.
This is Thunderhide Alpha. We have not seen this yet. The big brother of Thunderhide Pack, an absolute unit coming in at 25-25, but it's not going to be enough. We have the Roar here. We have the Claymore for lethal. Yoel's going to take game 1 here.
And you really just topsy-turvy game. VinKelsier, it really looked like he was in a position where he was dominating. He was going to be able to not only win middle, but put out enough pressure on left and dominate right. But 1 single Primal Roar makes all the difference.
Yep, I thought we had it with the Vesture. But anyway, as soon as they're ready, they're going to be going into the next game here. And that's, we'll have to see how that plays out. Man, what do you think about that matchup? Because like you said, I really do think VinKelsier was kind of in a leading position there.
Yeah, I think in most situations that game plays out a little bit more, and VinKelsier would have closed out the last few rounds, but just the stars aligned in the right way. The units were in the right position where he took out 3 heroes with 1 spell, and that's just a value that you don't get anywhere else.
Okay, so we can get into the next game here, and we've got the spawn that Yoel wants. This is the Bristleback against the Bounty Hunter. You just saw the tail end of that. Bristle going up to 2 armor.
By the way, we do have joining us here on the couch, Hot Bid, Ken Chen. How you doing, man?
What's up? I'm just here to watch, listen to you guys, ask some dumb questions.
That's fair. Plenty of dumb questions to go around. I feel like, in a way, we're all kind of idiots at Artifact. It's such a game that you have to be like an absolute mastermind to really feel confident in. and anything less than that, and you feel like you're just swimming in an ocean of confusion.
Exactly. It is kind of crazy how much depth there is in this game, and like ability for kind of outskill as well. Like even if you're bringing somewhat of a weaker deck.
Yep.
This game is great at making you feel stupid.
But that's just what makes it so exciting, the opportunity to learn and the opportunity to think about the game in so many different ways. It's a very challenging experience.
I'm going to pull up the deck list again here. We've got the Farvran deploying onto the right lane, whereas Ogre from Yoel is going to come out on the middle.
Yeah, and that goes into what you were saying before. By the way, we have switched sides at this point in time. Havelklumpkin is on the bottom now, whereas VinKelsier is playing from the top of our perspective. So that Ogre Bristle pairing that you're talking about before we even got into Game 1 is now being seen here in an empty lane. So they're going to be able to crush out most likely lane 2 very quickly, and Yoel Larsson is then kind of gets to choose his battles.
Yep, in hand we've got VinKelsier on the coup de grace. This is a pretty powerful card that he didn't have last game. PA's signature card. For the small price of discarding a random card, you can condemn any hero you want at 6. This is a great game closer because, of course, as the game is wrapping up, you don't
So you
really
said
need to
small price. That do you actually mean that, or?
often it is. Sometimes it really can come back to bite you. You know, it is a random card, but usually for the ability to condemn a hero just at will, it is usually not something you mind because this is kind of like a game closer, right?
What is that keyword, condemn?
Condemn basically just means destroy.
Yep. So the hero gets killed off, no questions asked. Could have 1,000 armor, could have 50
Damage,
HP.
it goes through damage immunity as well.
Yeah. So when you play against PA, I guess the thing to look for is who has initiative
Yes.
on mana 6.
Absolutely. That's one of those heroes where you really have to keep that in mind, and the mana turn as well. It's very similar to kind of like Luna's Eclipse, a big 6
So
mana
what are
turn
these
drop.
that he just played on the bottom?
These two are his improvements off of Ogre's signature. These are the Ignites, and these are going to start really chipping away. Double Ignite on this lane will clear up everything except for Farvan on a 2-turn clock.
Yep, and we still see him battling out pretty well on left as well. There was a position where Ursa actually could have been dead right now based on the new orders played from Bristleback and the pickoff in VinKelsier's hand, but because he's able to enrage and block some of that damage, you're now seeing him winning middle for Yoel and also putting a lot of pressure on left. In fact, with these 2 Ignites, you could even forget about right lane
and
entirely.
I think that's absolutely what he's doing. He's sacrificing right lane. The PA is going to die in 2 turns. It's going to come back a little bit later, but maybe kind of too late. We're seeing really the shoe being on the other foot here. Yoel is kind of being the aggressor in this game already, and VinKelsier is on the defensive.
Yeah, both players already know, just in this early deployment state, how important the first lane is. The left lane is now the place for everybody to go. Everybody piles in and just tries to make the fight happen. But we got a really cool draw coming in from Havelklumpkin.
Yes.
Clear the deck will,
Amazing.
like we saw in the previous game, provide cleave. And unless he's planning another next level play of picking off one of his own creeps, we are going to be seeing that do a heck of a lot of damage.
So cleave means when that hero hits another unit, the units adjacent each take 4 damage. So this Bristleback will take 4 because this Ursa's hitting this creep right here, but additionally, this Wyvern will take 4 from each of these because both of these will have cleave 4, and the Wyvern will take 8, killing the Wyvern, or at least threatening to kill it, and doing some damage to the Bristleback. But we're going to open with some items first.
Why is Wyvern's button glowing?
This is Wyvern's active ability, which we saw last game. Every 2 turns, you can move it to an empty combat position and give it
So
4
where can he
attack
move
this
right
round.
now?
He can move either to the right slot or the left slot on this board. These
Yeah.
are the 2 empty combat positions.
So, but if you move left, he's still going to get hit by the clear of the deck, right?
Exactly right. So moving right may be preferable, although he doesn't know the clear to the deck is going to come out
Yeah.
yet.
So once he plays it, he'll probably move right.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
So for now, just passing back and forth. We do finally see the clear of the deck come through. And the 2 options that I see is that he can either pick off his own creep like we saw last game, or we can see the Arctic Burn moving the Winter Wyvern to the rightmost position on this board.
I got to say, that would be a pretty cheeky pickoff. It might be a little too cheeky, though, considering the Arctic Burn is up. And it's exactly as Ken called it. Moving to the right side here would just keep it out of harm's way entirely.
Yeah, it really comes down to whether or not you value that extra 4 health on the Bristleback. If you want to keep him up, then the best move is to actually pick off your own creep. But
Or
that's-
7 damage on the tower, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And 7 damage to this tower is non-negligible. Keep in mind, the pressure is on the side of Yoel. So now we have the Ursa being threatened by the pickoff. He's got Maul, but it won't really do anything on this board. And the Wyvern will have to move to the right side, dealing tower damage and keeping it alive.
Yep. So we're going to be seeing a lot of damage come out here.
He might not move it because he wants to kill the Beastmaster, right?
That's true as well. threatening the Beastmaster is kind of powerful. It depends on whether he kind of wants to make that sacrifice or not.
When you move, the arrow stays the same.
No, it actually summons a new arrow
yes.
when Winter Wyvern moves. It's kind of one of those more interesting
Okay,
mechanics.
cool.
Yes. Although a little thing. Ooh, and deciding to take the trade, leaving Wyvern in place to kill the Beastmaster, giving up the kind of bristle on the just last man
Oh,
standing.
so you're just
over
doing
here.
that to draw a card, I guess?
Yes.
So he has a lot of cunning plans to work with here, as well as the potential value of Ogre's multicast.
Exactly.
So it goes ahead and just continues to cycle through his deck, which means he's just drawing cards
There you
and
got it.
increasing value.
Just
Nice.
drawing for free. We might even see the Magic Mall. Okay, he's deciding to save it for potentially one of the improvements. So as we can see here, this double ignites every turn at the start on this lane. This 2 damage dealt to everything, piercing. But this flask on the, salve on the Phantom Assassin is going to keep her healthy to kind of allow this lane to be pressured more. Payday, a huge bomb. VinKelsier was sitting on, I think, 16 gold when this was dropped. And now he's up to 33 because of that.
And now we get to see what items he does end up picking up from his item shop, if he's going to get the Vesture of the Tyrant once again, or if we're going to see something else pretty interesting coming
He's
out
going
for
to
him.
need that. I mean, the pressure is completely on VinKelsier this time around. Look at Yoel's 2 towers. Left tower and mid tower are both at 40, and there's no way you can 80 this lane.
You can tell by the blank spots in his hand that he just bought like 4 different cards.
Yeah.
We're going to see those come out just in a moment here. The 33 gold will be going down to 3,
There's
and
the
he has
Vesture.
bought 30 gold worth of items, including the Vesture of the Tyrant.
And
So why is Vesture so good?
This card represents just a way to kind of like shut out your opponent from winning the game, because when you have a hero that has Vesture on it, we saw last game it wasn't able to answer with Primal Roar, but this card kind of prevents you from losing the game. The tower armor just really severely reduces your opponent's tower damage, and the hero with Vesture normally can't really go anywhere, because if they killed, they just come back.
Yep. So could potentially see that on the Bristleback here. He is at -1 health, so that would make him nice and healthy at 2 armor, and a pretty stable health pool here. But Ogre just goes ahead and calls the reserves, which will force Bristleback to attack forward once again.
Cloning it again. We're seeing these double
Value.
ogres come in.
Why
That
did
is huge value.
Bristle's arrow change from the creeps?
Yeah, so when a new unit is summoned in front of a curving unit, the curving unit will kind of redirect its arrow in front of it.
It's
kind
like
of
drawing aggro.
Yes, drawing aggro, exactly. The Rebel Instigator, the card we saw earlier, its passive summons a new copy of itself every time it hits a creep, so it's a great answer to a melee creep. You're very happy about being able to play that there.
And he is holding onto the Vesture Tyrant. I'm actually curious if he wants to play that next turn on the mid lane, because we do see that lane is getting a lot of pressure, 5 different units, including a Bristleback hitting for 8. We will actually see if, let's say Bounty Hunter goes to the mid lane in the next round, puts on Vesture, that tower goes from taking 17 damage down to taking 5. It's just really powerful for negating that. Obviously, he's already lost the first tower, so the question is really if he's worried about the 80 damage core tower being threatened.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, it's kind of hard to be VinKelsier because you are playing very defensively by nature, but you're going to have to do something about one of these other 2 towers. They're both at 40 health. 80ing this is just not an option with the kind of deck in hand VinKelsier has. You got to pick one of these to fight for, and it's got to be
You're
left
saying
every
that
time.
he can't do enough damage to the middle tower in time.
Yes, that's exactly right. And the thing about choosing left is that mid is already dead on the Ancient, so when you try to push left, you're kind of defending and attacking at the same time. So this game is all about left lane as of now, and both players are aware of it. We're going to see a quad deploy left.
But as we saw in the previous game, it's actually really hard to fight a late game situation against Primal Roar.
Yes.
You commit so hard into a lane, and then this Primal Roar can effectively take out 3 units with 1 spell.
Exactly. That being said, Coup de Grace is going to kind of represent the same thing in the other direction. This is, at this point, an initiative game. Usually, artifact games kind of tend towards value early, and then initiative at this point, and whoever has the initiative is king. Right now, that's Yoel, as you can see by this indicator here.
And initiative means he goes first?
Yes. Going first, locking the other player out of options. So, for example, this Roar will be, one of the red heroes will guaranteed go into this slot here, and one of the other ones will go into this. So the Roar on the...
Neither does!
Oh.
But he still gets a good spawn.
Yes, this is a very good spawn. The Roar in front of the Ursa will stun the Winter Wyvern across from it, and it'll scare the Bounty Hunter and the Rebel Instigator into other lanes, meaning that VinKelsier will not be able to play any black cards in this lane. I would love to see this Roar come out on the Wyvern.
And does the Roar, can the Roar get copied?
It cannot, because the Ogre's
not blue.
multicast only
Okay.
works on blue spells. So, locked out of coup de grace, and that's just the power of initiative.
And if he's stunned, he can't move either, right?
Yes, the active ability cannot be tapped.
Yeah, and so now he's just burning through his items, the Potion of Knowledge, to try to get more red cards to play, as Bristleback is basically the only one that can cast spells, with both the Bounty Hunter removed and the Winter Wyvern stunned. So at this point, Winter Wyvern is most likely going to be going down. Does have the option of using the Vesture here, and we'll see if it makes sense to put that on either the Wyvern or the Bristleback.
So he can save the Wyvern with the Traveler's Cloak, and he can save the Bristleback with the Fight Through the Pain, which takes initiative. He's definitely going to want to use Fight Through the Pain at a certain point, so presumably he'll Cloak the Wyvern, and then fight the Bristleback, and he'll live to see another day. Look at that Vesture. This tower armor coming in. This tower was taking a lot more, and now it's down to 6, because it also blocks the Siege from Red Mist Maul, which normally would have dealt 5 damage here.
Oh, so the siege damage gets blocked by Vesture's armor
Yes.
also.
Look at this. This tower is only taking 6. And this is a huge defensive item, but VinKelsier's still going to need to find a way to deal 40 damage to this tower. That's going to be really hard.
Yeah, he's got the defense covered for the most part, but the offense is a real question. He's got he's basically full damage off of lethal on one of these towers, and it's just going to be problematic. I do like the Vesture choice on the Winter Wyvern, though, because it means no matter what Yol does, this Wyvern is going to be here next turn to try to use a coup de grace.
Yep, there's the fight. So the shoe's on the other foot this time. VinKelsier has the initiative. Keep in mind, when you get initiative, you can kind of carry it over, because first person to play gets the first pass again. So now he's going to pass with initiative, and he's going to do the same thing on the right lane, presumably. So when you get initiative, you can kind of carry it over until we're all the way back around on the left lane here, which is where you want it for coup de grace.
Just have to make sure not to play anything, right?
Yes, exactly. This is one of the trade-offs. in
Even
Artifact.
items?
Even items.
Yeah, any usage of an item or a card will, at this point, take away the initiative, and that means that he is going to be letting Yol take a turn on the next lane. But I don't think that he's too worried about... I guess the one thing that he has to be worried about would be the Primal Roar coming out once again. That would definitely shut him out of really any options from the Winter Wyvern. But he's just going to go ahead and take advantage of the negative armor that's already on the Ursa.
So those are 2 cross lane spells, and he just cast them both and killed the Ursa.
Yep, those are some of Black's ability to kind of deal cross-lane damage, and each one individually got amplified by the minus armor that was on Ursa because of Bristleback's signature card. So being able to take that down is going to be huge.
And if you hover over the Ursa, you'll see that he had -2 armor, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. You can see that -2.
So
there.
one grazing shot does 4
4,
damage?
and the pickoff did 6, so that was 10. Okay.
So basically, VinKelsier making the trade-off to kill the Ursa instead of playing for initiative. And given Heffa Klumpen's hand, it looks like that ends up being the right call, because we don't see the Roar, still don't see the Roar. Okay.
Does get a 3rd card thanks to the creep that he summoned in the middle lane. If we can just jump over there real quick. The Troll Soothsayer has a reactive ability where you draw an extra card each round. So he does get 3 cards. More options in this late game situation could be critical, but doesn't get one that will shut down the Winter Wyvern this turn.
And as we can see, this tower is armored up, only taking 2, even though it would normally be taking 7, 2 to this creep and 5 to the Red Mist Maul.
All right, so in VinKelsier's position, he could consider use that coup de grace. I might be worried about discarding some of the more valuable cards, but in general, just taking Beastmaster out of the game for the remainder of this round and a full round thereafter is just too valuable to pass up. And maybe even... Oh, the Arctic Burn, unfortunately, in this situation, wouldn't do anything.
So we got to play the untested Grunt first if we're VinKelsier. Right now, Arctic Burn moves you to an empty combat position. There's only one, because you have to play a unit in an unoccupied space if one exists. But as soon as VinKelsier plays the untested Grunts in front of this creep right here in this gap, then the 2 empty combat positions become left and right, and you can use Arctic Burn to move freely and attack tower.
Yeah, so basically the only way you can use Winter Wyvern's ability to widen the board is if you have more or equal units to your opponent. If there's no unblocked positions, then you're able to go to all the way to the left, go all the way to the right, and put some real tower damage in.
Could curve as well. Oh, it curves into the Ogre. This threatens it. It does not deal as much tower damage, but the Ogre is going down. And VinKelsier has kind of regotten control of the lane. He has the Ignite.
So why did the arrow curve toward the Ogre?
So when you occupy a new space on the side or during deployment, you have a 25% chance to curve to either lane, or a 50%, or to either side, or a 50% chance to go forward. So a small chance to kind of curve into that.
Yeah, there's a difference between swapping units and just actually moving them to a different position in terms of whether or not it actually affects their targeting.
Yes.
It does get another multicast and gets a cunning plan once again. This is basically giving him 2 free cunning plans this game, which is just allowing him to chew through his entire deck and get some of these powerful late game options. The Spring the Trap is the one that I want to see.
I gotta say, VinKelsier has this great defensive option in Vesture of the Tyrant, but it's not really gonna do anything for his mid lane. This tower is going down in 3 turns. He's gotta do something about that. He's gotta finish off this left lane fast, and I don't think he has the tools to do it.
And now we do have one other member joining us on the couch. Ken Chen Hotbit has stepped off, and we do have, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Ceviche joining us?
Close enough.
Just call him Ceviche now.
Ceviche.
It's tasty.
So what do you think about this game so far, man?
I haven't seen much of it. I just tuned in. I lost my own match, unfortunately, so I'm
man.
now 2-2.
Ooh.
I lost 2-0, but both of the games were really close. Just well played by my opponent, Nostam, and yeah, he had a few questions that I couldn't answer.
Sure. Do you feel like your draft played a big part of that, or do you feel like the deck was confident and the games just didn't work out?
My draft is very solid. I have like a green, red, kind of sort of a ramp deck with big creatures, lots of meat, but it was a little bit clumsy. I didn't really have many tricks, and he had a few nice ones up his sleeve with the Winter Wyvern, which we see right here as well. It was really hard for me to kind of like stop all those all the tricks that he had.
Speaking of the Winter Wyvern, the signature spell of Wyvern is quite tasty here. If he wants to go for the Winter's Curse on the Ogre Magi, that's a free kill right there. Also has the option of using it on the Ursa just to disarm it, but that would only deal 4 of the 10 damage he's looking for.
Yep, he's also got Coup. There it is, Cooing the Ursa, staying in the game, just stalling it out with this Vesture, just blocking 5 tower damage again like last turn.
So now that one tower has been taken by both players, it does mean that the next tower that goes down will be the game decider.
This Ogre just keeps cloning. How
How
many
many?
times has
Yeah.
this cunning
There's
plan?
3 free cunning plans, and he already had 3 or 4 to start with.
Yeah. This is like 4 cunning plans for the price of 1. Is he gonna keep doing it? There's Tower Barrage.
I'm still only doing 2 damage here.
He's got infinite mana with Sanctum, or at least 13 more. So clone and cunning plan again could have payoff.
Definitely has that option, but we'll
Payday
see.
doubling 11.
Yeah, 22 gold is still going to be quite substantial here and it's basically the way VinKelsier looks at it. This is probably going to be the next to last round of the game. We'll probably see things decided within the next turn or two, so spending all the money now while you have the chance is probably the best option.
Yep, and VinKelsier, like hyped earlier, has the Helm of the Dominator, which allows you to mind control an enemy creep. Of course, there's nothing super big on Yoel's side as of yet, but could be very scary against something like an Ogre Conscript. Here's this tower just pushing.
Well, right now I expect to see the Spring the Trap played to the left lane. This is a 7 mana spell that will allow you to deploy 2 centaurs to any lane. I believe they're 4/8 in terms of stats, and they're
4/8 each.
very substantial in terms of swinging games. They unfortunately will only do 1 damage to the tower, thanks to the Vesture of the Tyrant, but if there's a way to Spring the Trap and move the Winter Wyvern out of play, then that is going to be the key to victory for Yol.
Yep, so
Looks like he
it's
doesn't do it though.
up to half a clump in. Okay,
battle
he's
is
got the
almost
Bronze
over.
Legionnaire here, so this is threatening it on a timer of 2. That's very important. VinKelsier is doing something similar right, but it's just not going to get there fast enough. This isn't necessarily threatening it on a timer of 2. This is like 3 turns at this point, and it just doesn't it doesn't get there in the same way. that
Yeah, the
VinKelsier
middle
does.
lane seems pretty much done at this
Yes.
point.
It does seem like it.
I mean, there's always the chance that both of the creeps go there, and maybe the red hero can make some magic happen, but it's gonna be tough. Oh, no creeps to the middle at all.
Yep. So that means that he has to deploy Bristleback to the mid lane if he's going to try to defend it. Otherwise, his only option is to try to do 38 damage to a single tower in a single lane in 1 turn, which just doesn't seem feasible. So I imagine Bristleback will go here, but even still, it seems like Yol just has even more answers in hand.
It does look like this is over. I mean, even if VinKelsier has a very good Winter's Curse or maybe a top deck on a 3rd coup, it's still not necessarily going to be enough because there's no answer to this mid lane.
All right, thinking about it a little bit more, Vinny trying to see if there's any way that he could get the perfect 2 top decks to potentially push through on 38 damage on the lane 1, but if he doesn't see that option, he's just going to have to go for lane 2 in terms of the deployment.
Yeah, ultimately, Yoel just kind of having the deck that kind of maybe skews a little bit later, but still winning the early game off the back of these just powerhouse red heroes made this just a really, really major uphill battle for VinKelsier.
Yep, so tough position. He does have the potential to block an extra spot with the Mercenary Exiles, but he doesn't get any arrows on the Bristleback. This tower is still taking lethal damage as of this moment.
Didn't find the Helm of the Dominator either. You've got Red Mist Maul. I mean, if you're in VinKelsier's shoes, what's your win condition? It's got to be winning right at this point. It's going to be very hard. You've got to stall these other 2 lanes almost impossibly hard.
It's pretty much impossible from my perspective, especially with the fact that he doesn't have any blue AoE spells in his deck, no Tinker or anything like that. So yeah, these creeps are going to stay alive, and he's just going to have to take them out one at a time. We do see the Winter's Curse coming out on the Ogre Magi just 1 turn late, and we do see the Primal Roar stunning out the Wyvern to try to finish her off.
But the tower is still taking 0 just because of the Vesture of the Tyrant.
Very strong defensive item, and even stronger when you can just have this hero survive through just about everything. Healing Salve even now would keep him alive, but I don't think he's too worried about it. I think it feels like if he just has initiative and he can just play out all his cards on lane 2, that he's got the game in the bag one way or another.
Yep, it looks like this tower is just going to go down and no matter what ends up happening. The Mercenary Exiles represents a potential blocker, but it's not going to be enough against all the units.
Maybe VinKelsier got another Vesture of Tyrants from the secret shop.
That would be a real game changer. That would actually allow him to block out most of the damage coming into 2 different lanes and continue to allow him to stall until lane 3 made something happen.
We can actually see the hand. Nope.
Nope.
Not
no, sir.
there.
Ogre Conscript threatens 4. Is this enough? He's got Bronze Legionnaire and Blade of the Vigil. Blade doesn't push anything here. Bronze only pushes 1. It looks like he still doesn't have enough on this land.
Showing the power of that Vesture.
Yeah. And this is why Vesture is one of the most feared items in the entire item shop. Like, even with everything played on this board, this tower is still not going down. But it's too little, too late for VinKelsier. This middle lane is just gone.
Yeah, so at this point, Bristleback's only real option is to play the Mercenary Exiles in front of the highest attacking unit, which would be the Bristleback here. He does actually go for a chance to kill off one of the melee creeps with the gun, but other than that, it's not really going to be doing too much to actually prevent this game from ending.
Spring the Trap, a very powerful tool. Usually defensive, but in this case, being able to play it to push 8 extra damage is all you really need. And this is where the game should be closing out.
Yep. Keenfield Musket not going to do enough here. Neither the Mercenary Exiles will be sufficient, and it looks like that's just going to be it.
Yep. So with that, Yoel will take a very clean 2-0 in round 4 of this Swiss.
And passes it through. Dropping the tower damage down, but still taking 29 with his 21. He'll put it to perfect lethal, and that will be the game.
There it goes.
Calculated.
So Yoel's at 4-0 so far. Let's check on how the rest of our boys are doing.